Chris, thanks for doing the show on December 30th.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Chris, we just want to talk about that the movie. What can you tell us about the movie, when it's coming out, and what your role was in the movie?
Throughout mid-April, unless it tests really well, then they're going to try to push it off till the summer. So I think they were talking about April 17th, somewhere around there. I was originally hired, actually sent out there by Art Bischoff, just as the wrestling coordinator. Same thing I did on the Jesse Ventura story. Basically, just I would coordinate all the wrestling moves in the matches, and I'd be kind of a liaison between the movie people and WCW. But as it worked out, Oliver Platt is the main actor in the movie, plays the main character. And once I put on a fat suit, I pretty much matched him. So I ended up being the stunt double for the main actor. Other than that, I just put together all the matches and, pretty much did anything that you see with wrestling. I had my hand in it.
How much of the movie is wrestling? How much is not wrestling? And what WCW wrestlers are more featured on the show?
DDP is the main bad guy, the main heel in the movie. Goldberg's in it, probably the second most. Then you have Disco, Mean Gene, Kidman, Booker T, Hammer, Bam Bam Bigelow. Sure, there's others I'm forgetting. Tanay and Shivani did commentary. I think that's about it.
What type of were there like different clips of action as far as like WCW guys, like like you would like come up with, okay, I want to have this kind of a looking match to fit, like I don't know if it's like a wrestling scene or something, or
I don't think with the Kidman a lot of times they would just, if it didn't involve either Page or Oliver Platt, it was pretty much just kind of background action, action to be taking place behind actors, and and just to give quick little clips. And for that we used Mysterio and Prince and Kidman and Hoovy. And it was supposed to do, I pretty much left it up to them because there's no way I could come up with the stuff they can do. And I don't want to tell them what they can and can't do in a movie. I mean, this is how many chances are they going to get to be in a movie? So I told them whatever you guys want to do, and they went out there and they're supposed to do about a minute of action. They ended up doing like 3 minutes, and they did it in front of a live crowd. They let all the people into the Grand Olympic Auditorium, and pretty much a full house, and the place was going nuts for them because the stuff they did was phenomenal. So I think they're going to end up using a lot more of that than they plan on using because it was so good.
Did they do something like Kidman do? I mean, not Kidman, Hoovy doing like drop kicks off the top of ladders and things like that?
There's one scene where I was actually climbing up the ladder, playing the lead character, and Hoovy and another actor was supposed to come in and push the ladder over, but Hoovy insisted on doing the springboard drop kick, which since I was on the ladder, I wasn't all that comfortable with because it's a dangerous spot.
Yeah.
And he insisted on doing it, and I told him, probably nothing is ever one take in a movie, ever. I said, something like this, you're going to want to do at least 3 or 4 times, maybe, 10 times. And he still seemed cool with it, and sure enough, the more he did it, I think the more he was getting hurt, because he was landing pretty solid on his, it was a real ring, it was one of our rings, so, he was used to the ring, and he nailed it perfect every time, but, it's movies, you got to get different camera speeds and different angles, and, he ended up having to do it a bunch of times. Now, again, it was his call, and I was going to really put my foot down on that one and say, we're not going to do it because, it was real dangerous. I knew it was going to be hard, but, he pretty much pulled me aside and said, basically what I said earlier, how many chances am I going to get to be in a movie? Let me do this. When he said something like that, I'm like, well, if it's something he wants to do, I don't want to stop him.
Now, is there any reason, like, you were picked, as far as, like, to do the Jesse Ventura movie and then this movie, as far as the stunt coordinating above anyone else? Did you have a background in that, or was it just something like Eric had to pick someone and you know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah,
I think it just stemmed back to probably originally I helped train with Malone and Rodman when they did their stuff because Page was involved and he got me hooked up with that. Through that, because of my involvement with them, I also got hooked up when I was training with Leno. And then when NBC wanted to do the Jesse Ventura movie, they went to Leno's people and asked who worked with him. And he mentioned me, so they kind of requested me for the Ventura movie. And once I did the Ventura movie, I had the movie background. When the Warner Brothers movie came up, I was the obvious choice.
Okay.
Shane Helms was also out there, one of 3 count. Shane from 3 Count. He was out there, you know, as much as I was and did as much work as I did on it.
Now, were you kind of instrumental? I had heard that you were kind of instrumental in bringing in a lot of the cruiserweights into WCW as far as the power plant type of guys, and maybe, I don't know if you were instrumental as far as Shane Moore and Shannon Helms.
Yeah, or, basically right before, probably 2 months before Eric was released or whatever happened there, he asked me if I could find some cruiserweights. He had some kind of idea to use just the whole crew of cruiserweights, so he asked me to find 10, basically young-looking is what he really wanted, 19-year-old looking cruiserweights. So I ended up getting so many tapes and so much great talent out there. It was actually pretty easy to find 10. I mean, it was hard to narrow it down to 10. There were so many others. A few people like Reckless Youth, who's really good. He just had bad timing. He had done well, maybe good timing because most of those guys got released anyway, but he had just done one of those tryouts with WWF, so he had like a 90-day or 120-day no-compete. So we couldn't even really talk to him until that was over, and by the time it was over, we'd already found the 10.
Now, was the guy who's like Tony Marinara?
Yeah, he was
that was.
him.
What is it? Is he the standout of that group, or are there a couple of standouts?
It's a strange mix. Like Shannon and Shane. Well, Shannon, actually more Shane, is very experienced for such a young-looking cruiserweight. I mean, he's been working independence for somewhere between 7 and 9 years already.
Really?
He's a lot more polished than Tony is.
He looks so young.
Yeah, he is pretty young, but he started even Shannon, I think, has been doing it about 4 or 5 years, and he's really young. But those guys were friends with the Hardy Boys and the Carolinas, and they just gotten into rings very early and doing, you know, basically backyard matches, but in rings in front of people. So they have a long time of experience. Tony Marinara, just of all the cruiserweights I'd seen, looking at through the tapes and trying to find these guys, Tony had, for an independent guy, an unbelievable amount of charisma. And for the look he has, he just somehow got the people to react in every match I've seen. I saw a bunch of his matches. And he goes out there and just has fun and relaxes. I don't know if the Tony Marinara character is really that great for him, because he doesn't seem as natural now as he did on the tapes I've seen. But I think his potential is still there. I mean, once he gets, if they let him work, and he's had some health problems, if he can work, I've made a career out of bumping. This kid's one of the best bumpers I've ever seen. He's taking bumps that my jaw would drop. Like, how did he get up from that? You know?
Yeah, because like with him, I mean, I had heard, and it's I'd never seen him work, and then I'd heard from people, and I guess it was indirectly power plant stuff about like, you won't believe how good a worker he is, and then we see him in this role where he never works, and I'm going like, well, why don't they put him in a match if your talent is in the ring taking bumps, why is he a manager? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think part of the reason for that is, the health problems he's had. He's had a few concussions since he's been here already, and once that stuff happens, you take a risk every time you step in there.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I think, you mentioned he's a great talent and he's not being used. I'm not even sure if Russo and Ferraro know how good he is. I don't know if they've ever seen his tape of him bumping. It's just hard. There's so much talent in WCW that at times isn't used to the fullest potential, like Vandenberg, for instance. To me, I mean, if you look at his Smoky Mountain tapes, and those are some of the funniest and best interviews I've seen, especially at his level at that time. It was unbelievable. And, when he managed me as Mortis, he did maybe 2 or 3 interviews on the air. To me, that's a guy that, he was let go and everything. And, me and DDP and Terry Tell and a few other people are trying to work to get him back in because, I don't know, managers in wrestling, it's almost like a lost art. And I think if you look back to the 80s, I mean, that's what really got people heat. You'd bring somebody in and put them with an established manager, they were over. And I think if you'd just build up a manager, you could still do that.
Well, if you had I don't think there's any question that the AWA, as far as on the heel side, for years was carried by Heenan.
Oh, yeah. And even WWF in the 80s. I mean, you would bring in a new face.
Albano and then Blassie and them.
Yeah, you bring in a new face that nobody ever seen. You put him with Blassie or the Grand Wizard or Lou Albano, and you knew there was something. And then with Macho, you had everybody vying for him, and then they came out with Elizabeth, and it got her over and got him over. Same thing with Bam Bam. They had the battle for Bam Bam when Bigelow first came in.
Right.
And it's just, I don't know if you could do it now because managers have been so diluted and not given the mic time and not been featured. But I don't know, that's something I think I would try. And if I had to pick one guy, it would be Vandenberg.
Well, you came back a couple weeks ago to WCW, and they brought you with, I guess what's it calling, J Biggs?
Yeah, J Biggs.
What was, is that someone, was that their call, or was that someone who you knew?
No, that was Russo's call. I guess he knew him from, when he was up in WWF as Clarence Mason.
Right.
And, I don't know where Russo got the idea, but to play up the Hollywood idea was all his. Do the Hollywood thing, and, the whole champagne, women, cars, the clothes and everything. And he said, we should bring in an agent. And it's going to be, the Clarence Mason guy. And, it worked. I don't know if Vandenberg would have fit into that role because he was already known as something else. And try to push him off as an agent. This guy was, at least on camera, known as a lawyer. So a lawyer agent, it's not that big of a stretch.
Yeah, we actually had an email in this morning, and it has to do with this, and it was about James Vandenberg. Do you keep in touch with him?
Oh, yeah.
I guess yeah. What is he going? Is he in with ECW, or what's the status? Because he was on ECW TV a few weeks ago, but kind of like been on ice, it seems like.
Yeah, I don't know if him and Paul have actually sat down and worked any kind of deal out. They've talked on the phone a few times, and he brought him up for that shot, and it was kind of a last-minute idea when he made the Mortis Wrath comment. It was kind of, and I've been around Paulie, in the early days of ECW, and that's how he is. I mean, he'll be watching the show that he just booked, and I'll go, no, you two go out there and jump in and tell him to do this. And, he does a lot of his stuff on the fly, at least when I was there. And apparently when he used Vandenberg, it was the same type of deal. And, Vandenberg, he needs to make a living. And, he's been trying to get in touch with Paulie and trying to get booked on the shows. And, Paulie's a busy guy. I mean, he's got so much to do with that program. So, it's just, he's trying to make a living. And, he's, like I said, I want to get him back into WCW because I think he's untapped talent. I'm really surprised that WWF hasn't picked him up. It seems like, maybe because he doesn't have boobs. It seems, I said to go get some implants and maybe they'll hire him.
The man with implants. That's gonna be.
Don't put it past him. He might do it.
Hey, they got the headbangers in there with falsies already, so.
It'd be a perfect match, wouldn't it?
Yeah. What's now you grew up in New Jersey, right?
Grew up in New York City, actually.
New York City. Okay. And obviously you were a wrestling fan from childhood. What was your start? Because the first I had heard of you was you trained under Moolah, right?
Actually, I trained in a gym in Manhattan before that called the Lower East Side Wrestling Gym. It was run by a guy named Pete McKay and Bobby Bold Eagle, and it was just Lower East Side of Manhattan, so it was a lot of Hispanic, and it was a Hispanic kind of run gym. And basically, it's a long story, but John Arezzi, I guess, used to have a radio show, and he was going to have Cactus Jack on. My cousin was going to buy stuff from the radio show to give me for Christmas, and Arezzi said, well, why didn't you come down and meet Cactus Jack? My cousin called me up. I went down there and met him, and we met a little newsletter writer, a young kid. His name was Evan or something, and my cousin was looking to buy the ring to put in his backyard because he was almost as crazy as I was, and he gave me the address of this gym, and I went down there to really inquire about buying a ring. But since I was 13, I had known I wanted to do this, and I was about 21 at the time, and I saw the ring, and I think Pete saw me staring at the ring. He goes, "You want to get in?" I jumped in. I started bumping around. He goes, "Why don't you come back Saturday and train with some of the guys?" And that's pretty much where it started. I trained for a few months. I had my first match and graduated college and went down to South Carolina to work as a physical therapist. And that's where I met Vandenberg, and he introduced me to Moolah. I started training with her and doing her shows. And from there, Vandenberg got me to Smoky Mountain. From there, I got moved up to Pennsylvania and trained with Alpha at his school. And he got me into WWF to do job matches, and I did some ECW on my own. And then went to Memphis, and from Memphis I went to WCW.
Now, what names were you using before WCW? Because I remember you as Chris Kanyon in WCW. My earliest remembrance of you was at Bash at the Beach in Huntington Beach against Mark Mero, Johnny B. Bad.
Yeah.
Where I think you had like the best match on the show, but it was on WCW Saturday night before the show started.
Right.
It wasn't the greatest show in the world.
Much, I know.
But that was where for whatever reason, I don't even know what it was. Like, you kind of caught my eye, and then they did give you kind of a push as Men at Work and things like that. But they'd start a push, but they never let it really go anywhere.
What month was that? Do you remember? Was that May?
Well, the Bash at the Beach would have been July of 95, I'm thinking.
So I would have been there already 2 months. So I had done some job matches. I had done about 6 TV tapings before I went out there. But I wanted to go to California so bad. I had one of my college roommates was living out there, so I went to Jody Hamilton, who was pretty much in charge of booking the enhancement talent at the time, and I begged him. I said, please send me out to California. So he did, and I got on that show. So just to be flown out there, I maybe that's why some people noticed me. But it's funny you mentioned, because as soon as the match was over, I had about 3 or 4 people come over to me and said, man, that was real good. They should really do something with you. Bobby Heenan was one of them. Came out of his trailer just to find me to tell me that. And, I don't know. I was just in such a great mood, and, I saw it as a great opportunity. That wasn't on pay-per-view, but basically was a pay-per-view show. And, I just, worked with Johnny B. Bad, and I loved to work with him. I got along with him really well. And, we matched, and we had a good match. It was quick. It was about a 2 or 3 minute match. But I had actually been in WCW for 2 months before that, and before that, every match I had ever had, WWF, USWA, Smoky Mountain, was always Chris Kanyon. I was in ECW. When I was up there, it was when Cactus and Mikey Whipwreck just won the tag belts during that period. And when I went to WWF, it was right. My first match up there was against Diesel, Kevin Nash, and it was about a month before they gave him the strap. And, they told me, go out there and make him look real good because we're going to put the strap on him. And he just lost the pay-per-view match the night before. So I had to really get, really shined him. I mean, it was all just, he totally jobbed me out, but, I bumped my ass off for him, and, he looked really good, so that got me in up there. And Russo said he remembered me from that, and he said back then he even went to McMahon and tried to do something with me, and, McMahon didn't see anything in me, so that's why I didn't last up there too long.
Yeah, because, they'd given you, like, a couple of, would I say, like, minor pushes, like, with Mark Starr, and then the Mortis thing was, I guess, the first semi-push.
Yeah.
And
that was DDP. I mean, the Men at Work thing wasn't going to go anywhere, and it was, at least it was a gimmick. It was something where I wasn't just one of the guys that comes out. At least we had something with us, me and Mark. We had some good matches, especially against American Males, and, it was Bischoff's idea to do the Glacier thing, the Blood Runs Cold. He really did see it as the next big thing. He really wanted to push it.
Oh, he was pushed like crazy.
Yeah, he really thought, and he was smart because he saw it with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers, and it was basically groups of martial arts things that the kids were getting into. So he said, we had that. We could do that. Let's get some karate people out there. And, when I first was, originally it was Glacier. Ray Lloyd was first hired for it. And then he was looking around. He was going to put, I guess he always had his mind on putting Ernest Miller in it. And then it was DDP that got me into it. He went to Bishop, said, you need this guy to make, Ernest, his really green look good, and, McRae look as good as he can. You need someone out there that's going to bump for him. And 3 times Bischoff agreed and then pulled me out. And then finally came down to the power plant, watched me and Glacier work a little bit, and he's like, he went over to Page and said, yeah, you're absolutely right. This guy's going to make, our guys look really good. So I was pretty, again, it's my job. It has been almost my whole career to go out there and make people look good. That's pretty much what got me to Glacier, into the Blood Runs Cold gimmick. And, it was Bischoff's call to take the mask off at that time, too, when we finally took it off. He's like, we can't push a mask guy. He goes, and to me, it was a gimmick that we could have pushed. I mean, to me, it was the predecessor to Kane. I mean, if they would have pushed me like they pushed Kane, I think I could have got, maybe not as over as he is, but definitely a lot more over than I was when they took the mask off.
The funny thing is that I remember Kane does that certain look. And, of course, that was the thing. The first time I remember seeing that was with you and Raven. That confused sort of look with the masked guy with the long curly hair?
Right.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, yeah. I mean, I watch my stuff. I tape all my stuff, and I watch my old tapes as Mortis, and I definitely see a different style that I used to work with that mask on. And the Mortis character, to me, was real marketable, I always joked that I said, we can't market skulls on T-shirts, because Stone Cold sold something. I mean, I don't know if Eric's ever actually said that, but they never did market Mortis. And to me, it was a gimmick that we should have been, at least directed towards kids. And, but even, we could have sold it to anybody. I mean, skulls are cool. I mean, the Mortis gimmick to me looked cool. It was something that we could have marketed a little better, I thought. We did not.
We've got to head to a break. The one thing I've never figured out with wrestling is as popular as it is with kids, that they've never created a masked wrestling character before Halloween and gone full-fledged, big-time marketing it as like the #1 kid's costume, because wrestling's big enough to where, if you had a mask guy who was really, really over, kids would go, as whatever it would be, La Parka or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they did make cane masks, didn't they, and sold them for Halloween?
Yeah, I never saw any kids come into my house, but you're right about that. But, more of it wasn't really directly a Halloween gimmick. But,
yeah, cane was never really directed at kids, I don't think, either.
Yeah.
I don't think it was really a kid's gimmick at first.
First caller is Carlos from California. Carlos, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Is this Condor?
Yeah.
Oh, you tracked me down.
What's up, dog?
What's going on, Condor?
How you doing, man? I met you, David, I met you. You came over to buy stocks.
Yes, across from the gym. I was working on.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing very good. As a matter of fact, I talked to a couple of my partners about meeting you, and they're very interested in talking to you. But going into something else, where are the plans for your character in Bam Bam and Paige now?
The one thing Russo and, I guess if I asked them and sat down and talked to them, they'd probably tell me, but I almost don't like to know too much too far in advance because things tend to change, and I'm the type of guy, once I know what I'm doing, my mind just spins too much. I constantly overthink it, and I get set on my ways of what I want to do, and then if I can't or we can't do it, I get upset. So I pretty much just wait till I get there to find out what I'm doing week to week. You get there and you find out if you have pre-tapes and stuff like that, and that's the way I like to do it. So I have no idea what I have. I would imagine a pay-per-view match. I don't know if they've announced that yet. They haven't mentioned to me, but the way it's going, I'd be surprised if we didn't work this pay-per-view.
Right. I mean, the angle of the belt that you're having right now, is that like to replace a TV belt or something? What is that for?
No, I don't think it's going to be a belt that's going to be really in circulation. I think it's going to be more like along the lines of what DiBiase did back in the 80s in WWE.
Oh, the $1 million belt?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of just something I wear, and even, when I lose, I'll claim I didn't lose, or, they cheated or whatever. I don't think it's going to be one that's actually going to be fought for and, exchanged between guys.
Okay, well, man, I just wanted to say you're doing a great job, man, and you've always been one of the best athletes in the company.
Thank you, Carlos.
And therefore, I appreciate this time talking to you. And give me a call back, man. I definitely want to talk to you about that comic book thing.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you, man.
Take care, Dave.
We're out in L.A. on the 24th of January, so.
Okay, yeah, well, give me a call back, see where we can meet or something.
All right, man.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay.
What are you laughing at, Dave? I know that's a friend of yours, too.
No.
Very coincidental that he got on first.
I have nothing to do with these callers. They're just watching on the screen. But what was I saying? Do you know when you come up, because you've come up with a lot of different moves, and then a lot of people have copied them since then. Do you just like watch wrestling and just go, okay, like with that Russian leg sweep type thing? Hey, how about if we do it like this way, or
yeah, I would say 90% of the moves I came up with are just from I watch it so much, and it's like you said, it's just you watch and you think, well, if I just move this, and sometimes it's guys make a mistake. They go for a move and they do it wrong, or they slip, and you see different variation from there, and you're like, wait a second, if you would have just spun a little bit more there, you could have done this. And I get a lot of it from that, and a lot of we spend so much time in the gym doing cardio and tanning, and I mean it's just a lot of free time where your mind can just start wandering, and if you think about it long enough, you come up with stuff. And then luckily enough, I had the power plant and guys down there willing to take my stuff. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Lash Lou was one guy that took a bunch. A lot of my newer moves came from working with him, and he helped me actually develop a lot of them. And if you notice, he comes up with a lot of good stuff on his own too.
Now, where did he originally come from?
I think he was living like in Alabama and just went through the power plant. Did the, I don't think he had any experience before he got down there. And just something he wanted to try. And I believe he's married with kids and everything. And
wow.
The one thing I really liked about him was about, first of all, that he would take my moves because a lot of guys wouldn't. And he was real willing to do it. But I think he had like an hour and a half drive a day just to get to the power plant. He was there every day. When you have that kind of dedication, you just know the guy's going to be something. And athletically, you could see he had something anyway.
I remember the first time he ever appeared on TV. Whenever you see someone for the first time, you just don't expect anything, especially like a no-name, right?
Right.
You just expect someone to basically be beaten up and look green in the process. And he did 2 or 3 things where I'm just going like, boy, there's something in this guy.
Yeah, and he has a charisma that a lot of guys from Power Plant won't have right off the bat.
Yeah.
He has a certain, he's the way he took to this Tony Marinara and Disco Inferno gimmick, he's fit right in. I mean, it wasn't a stretch. And the first time you start talking on TV, it's a lot different than wrestling on TV. And, he fell right into it and had no problem, it seemed.
Are there guys at the power plant that, anyone else like a Lash LaRue or someone who's going to show up on TV someday? What about, like, some of the guys on WCW Saturday Night, like Alex Skipper or Kid Romeo or some of them? I mean, have you watched them or you worked out with those guys a lot?
Yeah, I mean, not so much down the power plant, but there's a local bar there in Atlanta that used to, I don't know if they still do, but they were doing shows on Friday nights before I went off and did that movie. And a lot of those guys are working there, and I mean, that's why a lot of them do show up on Saturday night and can have such good matches right off the bat. I mean, they work together a lot down at the power plant, but they also get in front of people, which, that's where you really learn. I mean, you could have a quote-unquote five-star match down at the power plant. You get in front of people and freeze up, you ain't going to do anything. But these guys, a lot of them do go out and work in front of people. I mean, the one problem that the guys in the power plant might have, it's not like, I'm not saying I a long time ago got into the business, but I went through the independents, in South Carolina, and then smaller TVs, and then Smoky Mountain and ECW, kind of worked my way up into one of the major too. It was something I wanted to do, and these guys, I think they get it a little too easy that they get right on TV, and it tends to give them an ego right off the bat, and there's nothing worse than having an ego in this business because, the guys have to work with you, and you go out there and right off the bat, the young guys from the power plant start having an ego, and they're not going to look good because people won't let them look good. And that's the one thing they got to be careful of. I mean, there's a lot of talent down there, and I don't know, there must be something in the water down there because they're all big. But,
Whatever happened to Robbie Rage from High Voltage? Because I thought he had a lot of potential, and then he got hurt, and then I just remember he came back, but then he disappeared again.
Yeah, I think when he came back too early and got hurt. He just wasn't ready. I mean, his injury is real severe. I mean, a really severe injury, and even almost like 8 months after his original injury, I still saw him in the gym with like casts on. He was just doing legs, but his arm was still on a cast and stuff. So
wow,
it was a pretty brutal injury. I don't know if his surgery got botched too. I mean, that's not something I'm not sure if that's what happened, but a few guys that happened to too. They got hurt, but then they went and had the surgery, and it made things worse. I don't know if that's what happened with him or not, but I heard him and Kenny got let go.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, because I was just wondering if somebody would pick. Because I just remember those two guys seemed to be, before he got hurt, they seemed to be doing pretty well, especially him.
Yeah, he was tremendously athletic. I mean, I like watching Kenny because he's funny out there. I mean, he's just got that crazy right foot, and he's wild out there. But together, I thought they made a good team. And they're both really nice guys, but Robbie's out of control nice, and it's just both of them look great, and they were really progressing really well. I think they did a lot of time in Japan, which really helped them. They came back from Japan, and they were twice as good as when they left.
Yeah. Let's go to Aaron in Ohio. Aaron, what's going on?
Hi, Chris.
What's up, Aaron?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I feel kind of silly because I had a bunch of questions ready to ask you, and you guys pretty much answered them. But I came up with a couple more.
Dave is such a great interviewer.
What's that?
That's because Dave is such a great interviewer.
Yeah. My first question is, who would you like to work with in WCW that you haven't already wrestled?
Bret Hart's definitely one of them. I grew up loving Bret, and it'd be great to wrestle him again. I loved my matches with Benoit. Some of my favorite matches have been against Chris. I helped train Kidman. I helped get Kidman in. We worked so much together, up in office school up in Pennsylvania. And when he first came to WCW, we trained so much together. And I'm trying to think. I don't think we've ever had a match. No, we've never had a match on TV. We've had a couple of dark matches, but that's a guy I definitely want to not only just wrestle. I want to get into a program with Kidman if I could. That'd be a lot of fun. There's a bunch, though. I've wrestled with PG-13 when I was in USWA, and I'd love to work with those guys again. Vampiro is one I'd like to work with. I love working with Saturn and Malenko when I work with them guys. I mean, that's the one thing about WCW. There's so much talent. There's so many guys that I'd love to work with. I mean, you get to the building, and there's maybe a handful of guys you don't want to see your name across from. And the rest, it's all good.
Okay. Do you like the direction that WCW is going with, like, the shorter matches and more skits?
Yeah. I mean, to me, especially with the 3-hour format, if they go down to 2 hours, I think they're going to have to mix it a little bit more. But for 3 hours it was so long. They had to keep everything real short to try to move it along. They won't need to do that as much with the 2-hour show, I don't think. But to me, it was hard for me to sit through the 3 hours, when I first went off to Hollywood. And by the end of it, I really started looking forward to Nitro again. Just because, you're not going to like everything on the show. And as long as everything's short, the things you don't like, you're not going to have to sit through them that long. I think they can pick and choose who has longer matches, though. There's some guys that can carry it, and they should let them carry it.
Yeah, cause I noticed like the Jarrett Kidman match was fairly long.
Yes, and I thought it was great. But those were better matches in a couple of weeks. But then you look back in the tournament match between Bret and Kidman, and it was like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That's one that should have definitely had more time.
Oh,
A Bret Hart match, to me, only gets better when it's longer.
Yeah.
He's one of the few guys that, I'm not saying he needs the time, but his psychology and the way he works a lot better when he gets the time.
Yeah, like that match he had with Benoit a couple months ago.
I don't know how he does it, but he knows how to build drama in every one of his matches, but he needs the time to do it. And very few people.
And my final question is, who do you see as some of the future stars right now in WCW?
Oh, there's a handful. There's a bunch. Definitely Kidman.
Yeah.
His theory if he could stay healthy. If Tony Marinaro puts on some weight, he could probably Shane and I think the 3-count gimmick can be really big.
Yeah, I really like that.
If they put him on in the beginning, they got to keep him on. To me, I would put him on in the first hour. You don't put him in the third hour. The crowd gets tired, and perception's reality in this business. And you put them in the third hour and they're not getting a reaction. Everyone at home says, "Oh, they're not that over." But then when they go see them, they don't react.
Yeah.
Put them on early; they're going to get the reaction they need, and that'll help get them over more. They were in the third hour this week, and they didn't get the reaction they did on the Thunder taping.
Right.
But those guys are real good. But there's so many. I mean, there's a lot of good talent at the power plant. And there's guys like Jeff Jarrett who's really hitting his stride now, Benoit, and PG-13 I think can be phenomenal if they let him go and do their thing. And the one thing I love about this company, there's a lot of talent.
Yeah. Well, I hope your wrestling is sold out because I got a ticket to that. So
up in Cincinnati, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm hoping me and Bam Bam, I think, but they haven't told me yet. But I have a feeling. I mean, they're not going to put the time every week that they put into me and Bam Bam doing our deal, and one way or the other, we got to end up on a pay-per-view, I would imagine.
Especially if they're doing like a 12-match show. Yeah, I would think they would have to.
Although I guess Chris is already involved in 3 different matches, right, Benoit?
Yeah.
And other than that, how many have they announced? 6 other ones?
It seems like, let's see, those 3, and then they've announced David Flair, a 4-way hardcore, the Bret Hart match with Sid Vicious. It's 4, 5, 6. So they probably announced 7, 8 out of the 12.
Yeah, I would imagine I'm going to be in.
Yeah, I think they're doing some cruiserweight thing with Medusa and Evan Courageous. I think maybe a 3-way or something.
Right. So.
What do you think as far as like when we were talking about that movie? What are your thoughts of the movie? As far as like, are you excited about it? You think it's
I read
really
the script and I hated it. When Eric sent me out there, I mean, I like the Ventura script a lot more than I like this one, and the Ventura movie didn't do that well. But then, I got to watch and film a lot of stuff, and it's all about who they put in it, and Oliver Platt's a tremendous actor, and David Arquette, in this role was really, really funny, and Scott Conn was good, and they have a lot of Martin Landau's in it, and Rose McGowan, and a lot of names, and the director's the guy who did Varsity Blues, and it's a big time movie. They spent a lot of money, big budget, and it's big stunts, and it's a lot different than the Ventura movie in that they spent a lot more money, and you'll see it. I got to see a lot of the wrestling they filmed, and the wrestling's going to be real good. I mean, we did some things I've never seen in wrestling before, and the way they filmed it was really well done. I mean, they put cameras where we can't put cameras, and the slow motion, and they make sure they get every shot the way they want it, and Brian Robbins and the director of photography did a great job, and visually it's going to look great. And I think it's going to do pretty well. I mean, you think about how many people watch wrestling. If we can get, I don't know, what do we get, about 10 million households on a Monday between the 2 companies?
About not 10 million viewers. It's like 6, 7 million households, yeah. 10
million viewers, figure if each one of them goes out and sees it, and that's just wrestling fans, that's, $7 a pop, it's a $70 million take, so.
Yeah.
70 million, it's real good.
Yeah, that's a hit movie.
Yeah, and that's just wrestling fans, and, they get them marketed towards both. When they advertise on wrestling, they're going to show a lot of wrestling clips. When they advertise, in the afternoons and at night on different shows, they're going to show more of the comedy, more of the acting. So hopefully we'll get, I'll be real happy if it does well. I put a lot of time and effort into it, and something I want to be successful.
Yeah, you noticed the one thing I was really interesting was the Andy Kaufman movie is they did separate commercials that were totally.
Hello? Uh-oh.
Am I up? Okay, we almost made it through a whole show without this thing cutting out on me, but we didn't quite get there. Oh boy. Anyway, we were talking. Yeah,
you were talking about Andy Kaufman movie.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting how the Andy Kaufman movie, they did separate commercials for the pro wrestling audiences, compared to the commercials they ran for the rest of the TV audience.
Right. That didn't do that well the first weekend, did it?
It was fifth, but it did, what number did I hear? $9 million? It wasn't too bad for the first. Yeah, it's not too bad. I saw it. It was okay. I thought it was okay. I don't know. Did you see it?
No, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm such a huge Kaufman fan that, I talked to Disco Inferno, who's a huge Kaufman fan. I talked to Mike Tenay about it. They both have seen it. And Tenay's argument was, if you're a Kaufman fan, you've seen everything they've done in it. That's everything in the movie. Nothing's going to be new to you. But Disco loved it because he said he really played up the Tony Clifton part, and he said, and he was really, impressed by Jim Carrey's performance, how much he acted and looked like him.
Yeah, I thought the performance was really, really good. But I kind of had the same thoughts as Mike Tenay in that when watching it, I kept mentally comparing. I had seen every scene, and I was mentally comparing it with the original, and I thought that it was a great performance that was close to, but in every case not as good, if you know what I'm saying.
Right. So I guess you've seen the Out from Hollywood and
all that stuff.
Specials on them and stuff. Yeah.
All that stuff, and then especially the wrestling stuff. I probably saw all that stuff like 50 times because.
Right.
Back in the early 80s, I mean, it was just, that stuff wasn't going on in wrestling, so those tapes were, I would watch those tapes over and over again.
Yeah.
Let's go to David in New York. David, what's going on?
Hey, we talked to Mike Modest last week, and you said that when Chris was on that we had to talk about how bad the Jesse movie was.
Chris, what was the story that when you were done with the Jesse movie?
Yeah.
Did you what were your thoughts? Like, was it like, oh, geez, I didn't like the script, or was it, or were you?
No,
what were your thoughts?
I love the script of the Jesse movie.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was because that's something I haven't seen that much of. I wasn't that familiar with Jesse's personal life, and I knew he claimed to be a Navy SEAL and all that stuff, but again, it was. I think part of the problem with the Jesse movie was it was a rush job, and we filmed it in just a few weeks, and it didn't have the time, and people just kind of rushed through it. I mean, it was just a made-for-TV movie, and the difference between a made-for-TV movie and a big-screen movie is, night and day as far as the attention to detail and money they spend, and how much effort. I mean, the people worked hard on the Jesse movie, but they were also thinking about their next project while they were working on it. I think, where everybody was focused during this movie, the Ready to Rumble movie.
Now, how long was the total filming of that movie, Ready to Rumble? I know they did like the wrestlers were there for like about a month, and then what about everybody else?
Filming, I think, was a 52 shoot day. Actual days that we shot, I think, was 52 or 53 days. So it stretched out over about almost 3 months shooting. But to film a 1 minute to 1.5 minute wrestling scene would take over an entire day.
Wow.
So it's like every angle, and it's amazing, the attention to detail. Everything that gets on camera is going to be what they want. I mean, it's.
I just think it was amazing. Like, it was just so stupid. Like some of the stuff, like the whole wrestling with shadows thing in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, the writer of the movie.
With the beard.
The writer of the movie had seen two things before they wrote it. I mean, it basically was, Jesse got elected the next day to produce. One of the executive producers called up a writer friend and said, "Hey, you ever watch wrestling? Well, maybe we should do a movie about Jesse." And the writer, I guess, watched Wrestling with Shadows and watched the Secrets of Pro Wrestling, and it was awesome.
Oh yeah, Stomp Your Foot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
they really
everything
did do
from
that?
both of those movies was in it, and you can't fault the writer. They have to do their job. It's not their fault they're not a fan. They're asked to write a movie about wrestling. They're not a fan. At least they watched, at least one good thing about wrestling.
Because I've always joked about how it just seemed like the writers watched Wrestling with Shadows, Secrets of Wrestling, the Jesse biography, and they really did that.
Yeah.
It was real. If you watched it, it was real obvious.
It was. And there was no way they were letting me change anything. I mean, at least this movie, they actually let, I took advice from me and Paige and some of the other wrestlers, and they did, change a few things. And
you told them again, schmaz.
Yeah, but you're not going to be able to, they write, and the director has his vision, the writer has their vision, and they don't want some wrestler coming and changing it. So you stuck with what you got, and, you just make the best of, and either way, I was in a tough spot. I was going to get criticized one way or the other. I could have made the wrestling true to the, 60s and 70s or whenever, just true to the 70s, and it would have been boring.
70s, 80s, yeah.
And then people would have yelled at me and said, oh, the wrestling was boring. So then I went the other way. I was like, well, let's get some talented kids out here and, put some stuff on screen that's going to look cool. And then I got criticized for that because it wasn't close to what Jesse and people of his era were doing. But to me, the one thing I read after the movie came out, I read in Daily Variety, which is like the Bible out in Hollywood, and it tore the movie apart, but it said the wrestling was good. The wrestling that was put on screen actually looked really good. So I was, pretty proud of that. I mean, that's all I was really brought there to do.
The wrestling sequences were good. I think just the plot and just the, there's another one where, what's his name, Neil Stewart. It's like everyone's seen so much of Jesse, and Neil Stewart was not really, he didn't have Jesse's good qualities as far as you know what I mean. Because he had like that charisma that he.
Neil's made a conscious decision. He talked with the director, and they said, don't watch too much of Jesse. I don't want you trying to imitate Jesse and come off as a bad Jesse imitator. Play the role as you read it. And, it's just a creative decision that Nils and the director made. And, they might have been right. I mean, maybe Jesse wouldn't have been a great imitation if he tried it, and it would have came across as worse.
I just really hated the part. I think it was you under a mask. Pile drove someone off the second rope.
Yeah.
And then they're in the back, and the evil promoter guy, he goes, something very bad happened tonight. Someone actually got
I actually tried to get Vandenberg into that role.
Oh, the promoter role?
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd have been good at that.
I mean, he was the devil. I wanted him to it would have been great.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, you work with what you have. You get, as an actor, you get a bad script, and, you go out there and you act, as best you can. Same thing here. I mean, I didn't have a choice. I was told to do that movie. I went out and did it. I actually liked the script, Did I like the way it came across on TV? I think if they were given more time and, it would have been better. I enjoyed it, but once you get that close to something, you can't be objective. I knew all the people I knew the people that did the costumes and the makeup, and I knew all the actors, and, to me it was just a bunch of people I knew working on a project together.
Okay.
I enjoyed it, but, again, I can't be subjective.
I was wondering what you were thinking back, I guess it was a year and a half ago, when Edge debuted in WWF, and a lot of people kind of said that he was ripping you off because he used a lot of your moves.
If what he was doing was copying me, and I don't know if it is or not. I mean,
I guess
he's a creative guy too, and
flatliner and that.
Yeah, I mean, if he was doing it because he watched my stuff and liked it, it's a compliment. I watch his stuff and I love what he does, and at times he's a lot more athletic than I am. I mean, I'm not going to run and jump over the rope without grabbing it. He does stuff like that, and the matches he's had with the Hardy Boys have been phenomenal. But
Dave, we got to head out. Dave, we got to head out right now.
Okay. One last thing.
Go.
Okay, go ahead. Vince Russo a big enough idiot to want to bring back the Men at Work gimmick?
Hopefully not.
Hope not.
No, I don't think so.
No, I'll probably have you get amnesia or something, and you'll start thinking you're Mortis and Men at Work. And
No. Let's go to Alex in Detroit. Alex, I think you're going to be our last call for the century.
That's a good way to go down. I have two really quick questions. First, how do you like going from group to group? You've been in the flock and then the triad thing. And second of all, how can you go on this boring show when you could be on WCW Live, the most listened to internet talk show?
Oh, God.
So Jeremy Borash.
They got him on there. Wow. That's pretty cool.
What was it? Did he have a real question in there? Oh, how do I like jumping from group to group?
Yeah, just going, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's worked. I mean, I needed to go, I thought I needed to join Raven at the time. I needed to be involved with someone that was getting over and getting a push. And that worked. And then Triad was getting even a better push than that. So it worked, but now they think I'm better off on my own. So, I like what we're doing so far. I like doing the commentary. I like, using the bottles, and I like the women out there with me. It's a good presentation. It's good for the eyes, and I'm happy where I am right now.
We got one last question here. This is an email question from Ryan Anderson, who said, are there any wrestlers in WWF or ECW that you would really like to work with?
Yeah, I wrestled 1, 2, 3 Kid when I was up in WAF. X-Pac 5, 6 years ago. I would have loved to wrestle him when he was here. I'd love to wrestle him again. I'd love to wrestle with Edge and the Hardy Boys. And I love what they're putting out there. It'd be great to be part of that. There's so much talent there. I'd love to work with Rock because he's so over. It'd be easy. Love to work with Mankind, because I went to see that Beyond the Mat, and it's one of the best things I've ever seen in wrestling.
Oh, that was awesome.
Oh, I went to see it twice. Actually, I made the producer and the director sit down and watch it. They got a copy, a private screening for us. And the producer and the writer of the movie of Ready to Rumble, they were blown away. They're like, we need to do something else with wrestling and something close to this. And they loved it. They couldn't believe how good it was.
I remember the first time Barry Blaustein actually came over my house and put this tape in, and about halfway through I'm going like, this is unbelievably good. And he goes, you like it? And I go, no, this is unbelievably good.
The whole time I'm watching, I'm like, this is really good, but Bret's movie had that great finish. Like, this ain't gonna, it's gonna leave you flat. How's he gonna end this? And somehow the guy pulled out a great ending. And I thought the finish when he went, I don't want to ruin it, but when he met up with Cactus and his wife at the end there, it was unbelievable how well he put it together. If anyone wants to see that, you got to go see Beyond the Mat.
Yeah, I thought the stuff with Jake was so phenomenal. I remember it was when the Jake stuff, and I just looked at Barry Blaustein and I just go, this is so good.
Yeah, the Jake stuff is great. So the Terry Funk stuff, the guy who tried to become a referee during the Terry Funk match with Bret.
Oh, that byplay with Dennis Stamp, yeah.
Oh, that was phenomenal. I mean, it's just so much. I don't know if I liked it so much because I'm involved in the business, but I see so many of those people, or those types of people, and not just that guy, but like Terry Funks and Cactus Jack. I mean, they're everywhere. I see those guys, but you see people like that. It's just great. I mean, it was just such a great cut of wrestling.
Yeah.
So many different
what's funny is there are people who think that that's bad for wrestling, and I disagree because I think that if an average person sees it, they come out with a lot of respect for wrestling, but it's just what wrestling is. I mean, the good and the bad, it's fair,
It was right there, yeah. I'll tell you, I was burnt out. I was still working on the movie at the time, and I was even questioning if I really fully wanted to come back to wrestling. And I saw that, and I was like, I'm so lucky to be part of something this cool. I'm like, I can't wait to get back. And that one movie inspired me to, come back and, work my ass off again like I've been doing because, again, you're privileged to be part of this business. And you forget that sometimes, and that movie reminded me. It's like you said, it's the good, the bad, but it's something I've always loved and still do, and that reminded me of that.
Well, thanks a bunch, Chris. We are out of time, and you're our final guest of the year, and I want to thank you very much on December 30th for coming out and doing the show.
Well, how better to end the year and start a new year than with a little touch of champagne?
And speaking of everyone, don't do anything. Just be careful on Friday night, and because we want you all here back on Monday when we start the new year, and follow what should be 2000 is going to be one interesting year in the professional wrestling business. I'm sure of that. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know it's going to be interesting.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Dave.